some people even go so far as not to start eating hummus till midday today. You know
Right.
what? For now, I haven't had hummus yet either, and that happens to be my minhag that I don't eat hummus till
Not sauce.
right after katsas. Exactly. I had these strange guys from Europe who were my teachers.
Yeah, no,
They
no,
get
no.
all sorts of crazy things.
That's
Like you don't wear outside clothes inside when you're davening, things like that. That was one of my rebbe's. That was one of his big things. Okay, so that's why he never wore a hat when he davened, because that was an outside Hebrew. Okay, strange, right?
see,
But what can I say? One of them was a
summer
Muslim
fun.
from Volozhin, so I figured he always knew better than I did. Okay. I'm going to start by learning sponsors. A Year of Learning, Bell and David Adler. In memory of her father, Eliel Ben Yosef Kohen, those inspired by Rebbe's in America, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Stamarkabot, and Shlomi Sachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Schmitz, Bad Yosef Chaim Bachava, Kanan Ben Moshe Eliezer Bachana, Pesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi B'tzipora, Isra Ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Bachana, Rex with Friends of Gladys Sherman, Luther Bud Mayer, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, and Huda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Braun, in memory of her husband, Rav Yochmel Ben Shmuel, friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yul Ben Baruch Lecha Cohen, friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dov, friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer Ben Yisrael Ahmed, Sarah Alpert, in memory of her husband, Rav Tzvi Lipa Ben Hillel, Rexford friends of Maddie Friedman, Mindel Miriam Bat Talman Ruvain, a month of learning by Susan and Ruvain Podolsky, in memory of her father, Simcha Bunam Ben Yeshua, a week of learning by Leila Bester, in memory of her mother-in-law, Rachel Bat Shalom, Rabbi Tzvi and Robin Karpel, in memory of his mother, Malka Bat Mordecai, and her mother, Chaya Elo Bat Menachem Mendel. Today is the 1st of May. We have one day of learning.
They did.
Okay, Natalie Goldstein, in memory of her mother, Yehudit Bat Nehemiah. Shemas have an Aliyah, Crank with Bashir, Vati Shir Shemas Nechol Ben Israel, Good to bench.
Oh my.
So, told yesterday a poor joke. I told him we have a lot of interest in today's Gemara.
Oh yeah.
Right? Okay. I'm going to go back. What? Oh, yeah. Very good. I had a professor who once said that you get 2/3 of a pound for that. To you. Right? Okay. I'd like us just to go back real quick to Samach Bet Amud Beis. I guess it's right. 62b4 towards the very end of the Amud, be able to give us a good flow into today's Gemara. Okay. At the bottom of the Amud, okay, they give Rava has challenged Abaye in terms of Abaye's explanation of the Mishnah. Okay, and in doing so, he's about to challenges. No, if you're saying if it was this, then it should have been written this way. If it's that, it should have been said this way. Back and forth. Okay, right? And finally, at the very end, okay, at, at one point now, Rav is ready to start his explanation of the Mishnah. Okay? So it's like the next to the last line. Ela Amar Rava, Ki Shachivna, when I pass away, Rabbi Oshaya, remember Rabbi Oshaya was considered one of the editors of the Tosefta, okay, for the Braitas, right? Nafik Levate. He's sort of going to come out and greet me. Why? Okay? Because the mitratzna matnitin kavate. Because I'm going to explain the text, the Mishnah, according to his view. And that's where we sort of left off to start on the top of Summit Gimel, okay, Amud Aleph, right? As the Gemara picks up. The Tani Rabbi Yoshia, okay, as taught according to Rabbi Yoshia, okay, the following. Harei sheyeh noseh b'chavero, a situation where we're talking about claiming a debt when one owed money to owed 100 prutot, let's say, to his friend. V'halach v'amad al gorano, and he went to his friend's silo. V'amar, and he said to him, Tein li ma'oti, she'ani rotzeh likach bahen chiti. Okay, give me my money, okay? In other words, pay me what you owe me in the loan so that I can go out and buy wheat. Va'amarlo, and the owner of the goren, of the silo, says,
The borrower.
what?
The borrower.
Yeah, who's the borrower? Right. Okay, the one, right? Va'amarlo chitin yeshli, I have wheat. Shani no tenach, I'll give you, instead of giving you the money, I will pay you back in produce. That's what he's saying. And at what point? Okay, well, we're going to see that in just a moment. All right, Shani no tenach, say va'asa'an aleri kishar shel akshan. Go into the silo, see how much, and based on the current market price, you'll figure out how much of the grain I have to give you to pay back the loan. Okay? Okay, and it's important that we recognize here, number one, that it's at the current market price, and number two, it's important to realize there is a slight machloket among the mafarshim, which we're going to really run into later in the Gemara, whether when he goes into the Goren, does he actually sort of scoop up or pick up a certain amount of the produce, and therefore there's an actual transaction, or whether he simply designates that amount there that's sitting in that corner, okay, that's what I'm going to take. Okay, but we keep that in mind, okay, as we'll get further down in the Gemara, okay? So what happens? Okay, so that's what he tells him. Higiyas man chitin limkor. Okay, so now we reach the point where they have the market value. Okay, time to sell wheat, right? Amarlo, and he says to him, Tein li chitin shani rotzeh lemochran likach bahen yayin. Okay, give me the wheat that you promised to pay back the loan to the equivalent. Okay, and because why? Because I want to go and sell that wheat in order to buy wine. Right? Amarlo, he says to him, okay, yesh li yayin shani notema. I've also got wine. So I'll pay you back in wine instead of paying you back in the wheat. Still to pay back the loan. Okay? Say va'asa'an alai hishar shal achshav. Okay, go and figure it out according again to what the market value would be of the wine at this current time. Okay? Higiyas man yayin limkor. It came time to sell the wine, right? Va'amarlo, and he said to him, right? Tein li yaini she'ani rotzeh lemachron. Give me the wine that you're supposed to be paying me back for the loan, right? And so I can go sell it. So what did he do? V'lekach bo shemen. Okay, because I want to buy oil, right? Amarlo, he said to him as follows, Shemen yeshi, I've got oil, okay, right? And so what is he going to suggest? Shani no tema, I'll pay you back again through produce, okay, with the amount of oil for the money that I bought. Seba asau alai kishar shalakshan. Again, figure it out how much it's going to come to you based on the current market price of the oil. Okay? Kulam, all of them, says the continuation of Rava. Now, remember, this is Rava's explanation of what the Mishnah is really talking about. Okay? Im yeshlo, If he has it on hand, I'm going to say, available, mutar. Okay, that whole process is permitted. If he does not have the produce available, asur, then it's forbidden. Okay, so the question now we're going to come back. Remember, we asked previous Amud if somebody gets interest, do they have to return it or not? Okay, eventually we may get back to that. Umaylak. So what do we mean that he purchased? Lakach b'halva'ato. He acquired it as payment for his loan. Amar Rava, says Rava, Shmamina mida Rabbi Oshaya tzla. From this explanation of Rabbi Oshaya, says Rava, we can learn three things. Number one, Shmamina da ma'amidin malve al gabe pera. It's possible we learn from this thing that repayment for a loan can be based on produce and not necessarily on coin. Okay, that's the first thing. Velo aminan delo ki isuro haba liado. And it's not like we say that he has to actually have the money, the isar, the money on him. Okay, this is important because we've seen previously, and we're going to see again later on, maybe this is like a situation where he says, oh, I got to wait till my son brings the key, or my son comes and unlocks. In other words, it's not that I don't have it, I just don't have it immediately to give to you. Okay? Shma Mina, a second example, who? Dieshlo. If the question is, does he have it on him? It's preferable that he have it available. Okay? Ushma Mina, and the third example, Itala de Rabbi Yanai, that we follow the view of Rabbi Yanai, which hopefully we will soon get to. Right? Amar Rabbi Yanai, as Rabbi Yanai holds, Mali hen, Mali dmehen. What difference is it to me, says Rabbi Yanai, when he pays me back in produce or he pays me back in something that is the value that's equivalent to the money. Okay? De itma, because it was said, Rab Amar, says Rab in the following, Osin amana b'perot. It's possible to make an arrangement of trust, okay, what we might call an advance payment in some ways, with produce. Ve'ein osin amana b'damim, but one does not necessarily make that arrangement of trust, that advance payment with actual money. Okay? Rabbi Yanai Amar, but it's Rabbi Yanai who holds Mali Hain Mali Demehen. What is the difference whether you pay me back, okay, right, in actual produce, or you pay me back in the value, okay, of the item? Meitiva. But we're going to make a challenge to this view by Rav's statement with the following. Didn't we just say everybody was in agreement, right? Kulam im yeshlo, that if he had it available, then mutar. Under those circumstances, we said it was permitted. Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, B'sheh Mashach. No, that was only a situation when the guy went into the granary and he actually acquired a certain amount of the grain at the market value by gathering it and pulling it together. Okay? Is it really necessary, asks the Gemara, to say that he actually acquired it? Ela Kigon, Shiyichedlo Keren Zavi. No, we're simply saying it was sufficient that he said what's in that corner, that's going to be adequate to pay back the loan. Okay? Shmuel Amar. And according to Shmuel, Hamani, according to whom is that? Rabbi Yehuda. It's according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Da'amar sadechad beribit mutar. That if it's sort of uncertain interest, okay, that's still permitted, right? Titania, as we learn in a Braita, Hare Shahaya Nosei B'Chaveiro Mana, if we say that someone owed his friend 100, Va'asalo Sadehu, and the borrower, right, put up his land, okay, to a third party, I believe, a broker or somebody, in order to sell it, right? To use that as a way of paying off the loan. Bisman shehamocher, at the time that the borrower, okay, that can be done so long as the borrower ocher perot mutar, that he can still benefit from the use of rok, it's permitted. Okay, lokeach, but if the purchaser, in other words, the lender, okay, ocher perot, if he thinks that he can eat the peros, asur, then that does not work. That's forbidden. Rabbi Yehuda, however, says, af bisman shehalokech ocher perot mutar. According to Rabbi Yehuda, even at the point where the lender, okay, is the one who bought the land, okay, what happens? It is permitted. Amarle Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda says, let me give an example. Maaseh babitus ben zogin, ben zunin. Okay, example with the story of Bitus, right? She'asa sadehu mecher al pi Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Okay, that he apparently made his land a sale based on the advice of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Velokeach ochel perot haya. And in that case, it was the lender, right, who was the one who was getting the benefit of the usufruct. Okay? Amrulo. And we said to him then, Masham Raya, you're giving that as a source. Mocher ochel perot haya. Velo you got the story wrong, basically. It was the borrower who was the one who was still able to benefit from the usufruct and not the purchaser, namely the lender, the malveh. My benahi. So what's the difference between them? Amar Abaye. Okay? Said Abaye. Sad echad beribit ika benahi. There was some uncertain interest, okay, involved here. That was the difference between them. Rabba Amar says Rabba gives a different perspective. Ribid amanat lahachzir ika beinan. No, we're talking here about interest where there was an understanding that it would be returned. Any extra money, that would be returned. That's the difference between them. And now Rava goes on. Amar Rava, Hashta da Amar Rabbi Yanai. And now that Rabbi Yanai has given his view, right? Namely, Mali Hain or Mali Demeden. Remember, a reminder, that was Rabbi Yanai's view. What difference does it make? Whether he pays him in coin or whether he pays him in something that's the value of what the loan was, right? Produce. Amrinan, Mali Damehen, Mali Hen. Here too, we can apply that same view. Okay, doesn't matter whether he paid him back the 100 in coin or he paid him back in some produce, whether it was wheat, whether it was wine, whether it was oil, based on our story, our Mishnah. Nami Amrinan, but here also we have said, okay, one of the three things that we learned, okay, based on the language of the Mishnah, okay, that they had to determine the market value, right? Uposkin al shar shabashuk, and they have to have made a decision about what determined the market value. The afalpi she'eno, and that is even in a situation where he doesn't have the produce or the money on him. Mm-hmm. Market value. Okay? Right? Why might that be the case? Because we could say All right, if he doesn't have that immediately, maybe he can get it from somebody else. A tivei. But Rav Papa challenges him. And not only Rav Papa, but Rav Huna Beret de Rav Yoshua. He also, the two of them challenged Rav. Kulam, but we had a statement earlier that said everyone, im yeshlo mutar, that, that it applied only when he had it handy, okay? Not when he didn't. Im ein lo asur. Therefore, I would infer from that that if he doesn't have it, it's prohibited. Amar lahom. So he responded back to them the following, right? Hatam halove. There we were talking about a loan. Okay. Hacha, here in our case, is zavini. We're talking about a sale. Now, Rabbah, the Rav Yosef, the Amre Travaihu. Because both Rabbah and Rav Yosef tell us the following. Ma'itama amru Rabbanan. What is the reason, as we now move on to that issue of current market value, right? That the rabbi said, Poskin al sha'ar shabashuk, that you could even determine it based on what the existing market price was in the marketplace. Okay? Va'afal pisha lo, even if the person doesn't have the produce or the payment to pay him back immediately. Market value, right? Da'amarle, why? Because he could say, right? Shakilna tivutaya, sort of like he might say to him, take away any favors that you want to do for me. Vishadaya achizre, and throw it on the thorns. Okay? By the way, thorn bushes is interesting that Koren suggests that what they're actually talking about is bamboo here, because bamboo was brought from the Far East and started growing in Babylonia by this time, and there was a major market for it. Okay? So in other words, don't do me any favors. It's like you're throwing the money away. Okay? My ahanate li, what benefit am I going to get? Ihavu li zuze biadei. Were I to have the money at hand, hava mazvenina behine ubashili bazula. Okay, if I had the money in hand, okay, I could have gone to one of these other towns like Hini or Shavili, and I could have brought the produce, or I could have bought what I needed at a cheaper price, right? Amarle Abai the Rav Yosef. And so Abai now asks Rav Yosef, who had joined with Rabbah, remember before, to give that answer, Ella me'ata. But from here, mutar lilvot seya b'seya. It would seem to be, therefore, that it's permissible, okay, to borrow, okay, from based on produce and return, pay them back in produce as well, particularly a certain, so long as you're giving the exact same amount, the equivalent, okay? But that would mean what happened, that doesn't seem to include the issue if the value of the produce itself changes. Okay? The seya, b'seya. Mishum dematzea marli. Why? Because the person could therefore still say, Shakila tivutech, take away your favors, Vishadaya achizre, and throw it on the bamboo, on the thorns. The amarle, why? Because he could say, Chitai de kadche ba'achlabai. Okay? That basically he could say here that, okay, that in this case, it's like, I want to phrase it, it's like something broken. It's like not able to be taken care of. Amarle hatam, and so he said to them there, all right, halova, halva'a. There we were talking about a case of a loan. Hachazavini. Here we're talking about a case of a sale. So now we find the following comment. Amarle adaba abba Rava. He says to Rava, Vaha bai lemotav zuze lafsaf sera. But here, okay, if you're talking about an equivalent exchange, that's one thing. But it's not going to be really an equivalent exchange because doesn't he have to pay some money to a broker? Okay. Amarle, he said to him, what happened? Deka yahivle nami. Okay, he's already given it to him. Okay, or another possible explanation, Ravashi Amar, Zuze de Inshe Inhu Avde Le Saf Sirute. And Rav Ashi says, no, what happens is that the amount of money that the person is able to pay, people consider that acting like the broker. Okay? In other words, it's either included in the transaction, okay, or he slips him an extra couple of zuz, all right, and it's done. Deal is done. Okay? Now we come back. Rabba Varavya said, the Amre Travayu. The two of them said, Hai man diahiv zuze atra harifa. Okay, what about a situation? Who is the one who says that when you give, okay, atra'a harifa, okay, this is pay in advance, an early price. Okay, Sarich la'achzure lebei dare. Okay, in that situation, what do we say? That that's done before we've reached the market price being set. Right? Lamai, what's the purpose? Ila mikna, if it's the purpose regarding a purchase, ha lokane, that's not, I'm sorry, srichlach zuri lebeidare, he has to actually appear and visit the threshing floor. Okay? If he's trying to pay him in advance. Okay? But simply the problem is his presence there isn't sufficient. Lamai, what's the business? If his presence there, ilamikne, to arrange a sale, ha lokane, that's not an active sale because he doesn't actually take possession. Ilakabule ale, if he's coming to receive it, to get it, okay? Or is he coming there because he's concerned about Mishapara, the curse that could come on a person who doesn't fulfill their promise to carry out the sale, and therefore we have a curse that we saw earlier. Kilo mitchaze nami mekabel alei mishabam. But even if he doesn't show up, says the Gemara, okay, it's possible that the curse is going to be upon him. Le'olam lekubule ale mishapara. No, the reason he shows up, if he's made a verbal commitment to pay in advance, okay, is because he's concerned about the curse. Umandi yahiv zuze atra charifa. Okay, but the one who does have the money, okay, to make a early or an advanced payment, right? Lebei tre slata yahiv. What he usually would go is to go to 2 or 3 different sellers of grain, right? And that's who he would give, so he can guarantee that he has the produce that he's looking for. Okay, why? Because if he does show up, samcha da'ate, then the seller relies on him to carry through on the transaction. The elo, and if he doesn't show up, amarle, he can say to him, the seller, Amina de ishkachat pire de shapire mididi v'shakalt. Then I can say, the seller, I believe that I think he may have found produce better than mine, and therefore, okay, he went to somebody else and acquired it from them, and then I can sell it to somebody else. Right? Um, right? Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, Hashta da Amart Mishum Misamak Data. Now, since you're saying that he's, taking his word, taking him at his word, he's relying on him. Afilu ishkache b'shuka. Even if he doesn't show up at his granary in advance, but simply meets him in the market, and he says something to him there. Va'amarle samcha da'ate. And he tells him there in the market, you can rely on me that I'll come by and I'll pay you the going price. Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman as follows: Klala the Ravita. We have a general principle when it comes to interest. Kol agar natan, any reward or payment for waiting, okay? Natala asur, that is forbidden. Okay, in other words, you shouldn't be putting it off. V'amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, Hai man de yehiv zuze lekir'ah. Okay, one who has the money, okay, and he needs it, let's say, for a wax merchant. Okay, v'ka'azle arba, and he usually charges 4 loaves of wax, so to speak, at a price of 4. Okay, 4. Va'amarle, and he says to him, okay, the merchant says to the buyer, all right, Yahivna lach chamesh chamesh. I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you 5. Okay, for 5. In other words, eat nahu gabe. All right, he can bring it to him and give it to him. Right, sharing, it's permitted. In other words, he could give it to him on a discount. That's acceptable. And we don't really necessarily consider that an act of interest. Litnahu gabe, but if he doesn't have it on hand, asur, then it's forbidden. Pshita, isn't that obvious, says the Gemara? Lo tzricha, no, we needed to spell this out. Why? The itle ashrai b'mata. Why? Because maybe he has credit in town. Okay? Mahu dating. By the way, in Israel today, when you could use a credit card, what is it called? Katis ashrai. Okay, same word in the Gemara. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, mahu datema. So what are you telling us here? Kevan de itle ashrai b'mata. Since he has credit in town, it's similar to the situation as if he were to say to you, what? Why don't you wait till my son comes? Or or until I find the key. In other words, just wait a little bit. I don't have it right now, but I certainly have the money at some point to pay. Okay. Kevan de mechasre ubina. Okay, since it lacks collection, okay, right? He does. It's not. They don't own it. Keman de litnaho dami. Maybe we're going to consider that like he just doesn't have it, and therefore the transaction isn't valid. Va'amar Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman now tells us the following: Haiman de ozi pshite mechabre. We have a certain person who says he borrowed some small change. I'm going to use that word. All right? Okay? From his neighbor. Okay? But what happened? Va'ashkach ve tufine. And he saw that there was an excess in the amount of the change. Okay, I asked Avrami, can you give me a quarter for a tzedakah today? And he gives me some change, and I found out he gives me nickels and dimes, and it turns out to be 35 cents or whatever. Okay, 3 dimes and a quarter. Okay, just as an example, right? Okay, ibikdei shahadat toeh. If it's within I'm going to call it the realm, okay, that it's easy to make that kind of a mistake, that it's acknowledgeable. Mechayev lahadurele. You're obligated to give him back that money. Ve'ilav, and if not, matana ba'almahu deyihivre. It's like he gave you a gift. Okay? Hey, Chidami, how would we know what the case is? Bichdei shahadat tova, to'eh, that it's within reasonable amount there. Rav Acha Berei Rav Yosef tells us what is it, and we'll go over just the top. Be'isuraita ubechumushaita. Okay, it's within tens or fives. Okay, in other words, it's within, let's say, a particular coin. That's that amount, and we'll stop right there in the top of some Dali. Okay. Now I'm not sure if Shimon will be back to do the shiur tomorrow, but if not, I will. Okay.
And the cookie monster stuff.
Okay, I'm sure one of them will be back. Your son will drive you back? He's going to walk then.